In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 cons of living in Toronto. So if you already live here or you're thinking about moving to Toronto, stay tuned. If you're looking for information on Toronto real estate and real estate in the GTA, whether that's buying, selling or investing a condo or a house, please consider subscribing to the channel, hit that like button and turn on the bell notifications. If you are thinking about buying or selling a condo or house in the GTA, or you don't live here yet but you're thinking of moving to Toronto or anywhere else in the Greater Toronto area, you can now schedule a free 30-minute consultation via Zoom with me. Check out the links in the description below, pick your day and pick the best time that suits you, and I'll see you in that Zoom call. If you have any questions about real estate, get in touch with me, give me a call, send me a text or hit me up in the comments below, or even better, schedule that Zoom consultation. So let's get into the 5 cons of living in Toronto. And con number 1 is going to be the weather. I remember when I moved here at the end of 1999, my first winter was definitely a shock to me. I wondered where the hell I was. It felt like I was in the middle of Alaska or the North Pole. It was freezing. So the winters in Toronto are very cold, usually from November till about April, about 6 months. It's cold, it's dark, it gets dark earlier on in the evening with the time change. And it can be a pretty long winter here, I'm not gonna lie. So if you're not a fan of the winter time, being in the cold, probably don't come to Toronto. Now, as you can see here from this infographic, the cold weather temperatures get down from anywhere from 0 to about -10 in the winter time on average. But on top of that, you have to factor in the wind chill, and that will often add 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees colder in the winter time. So the thing with the weather in Toronto is that it's very extreme. In the summertime, the best months are obviously June, July and August, and the temperatures typically average in the high 20s, low 30s. The other thing you need to factor in the summertime here is the humidity. So the weather could say it's 28 degrees, but with the humidity, it feels a lot hotter than that. And in the winter time, you could have an average of say 0 to -10 degrees. But on top of that, you will have the wind chill on many days. So the weather report could say it's -5. However, with the wind chill, especially if you're right nearby the lake, you could probably tag another 5 degrees colder on top of that as well. So in the summertime, very hot and humid. In the wintertime, very cold and a lot of snow, especially in January, and extra cold temperatures with the wind chill factor put into that as well. I remember my first winter here when I moved here at the end of 1999. I had the shock of my life. I had my jacket on. It wasn't a proper Canadian jacket. So I strongly advise you, if you are going to move here, you will need to kind of prepare a little bit, get some really warm winter clothing because the winter times can be really brutal here. Con number 2 of living in Toronto is the traffic and the roads. Now, they say Toronto has 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer and fall. However, there's a joke that there's only actually 2 seasons, which is winter, and the second season is construction season. So in the summertime, there's a lot of construction on the roads, fixing potholes, construction with new condos in the downtown location, and also fixing all the potholes. So you have to be careful when you're driving around to dodge all the potholes. The roads are not that great here, to be honest with you. When it comes to traffic, the other thing you need to consider is going to be your commute. So if you work downtown, but maybe you live in Mississauga or Oakville and you're driving in, you're coming along the QEW highway, or you're coming from the north end of the city down the 404 DVP highway, expect traffic. It can get very busy. If you just look on Google Maps with the traffic turned on, anywhere from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. if you don't live here in Toronto, to get an idea of the traffic. You'll see that red line typically when there's people commuting, and also from about 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. headed north on the DVP highway is usually blocked solid. It's a lot of traffic. Toronto's a huge city and the city planning has not been the best in terms of organizing highways and transit. The other way that you can get around from home to work, if you live out in the West End, is via the GO train, and also from the north end of the city too. So as you can see from the map here, get an idea of the highways. The 404 DVP is heading north-south, which blends into the QEW Gardner Expressway, which heads out to the West End, so to Mississauga, Burlington, Oakville, etc. And you've also got the 401 highway, which runs north of the city, runs from east to west. So if you live in the East End in Ajax, Pickering, Whitby, That's going to be the main highway you get to come to the West End or Toronto. And on the west side, again running north-south, which runs to the airport, is the 427. Con number 3 of living in Toronto is the cost of living in Toronto. It's got a lot more expensive over the last few years. When I moved here in 1999, part of the reason why I did move here was for the cost of living, because it was way less expensive than in England in terms of real estate, food, gas or petrol, clothes, things like that were just way less expensive than in England where I'm from. It probably was a lot less expensive at the time compared to a lot of other places in Europe. However, over the last 20 years, things have increased rapidly and the cost of living here is substantially more. I'm going to give you a quick example of the first property that I bought in Toronto. My first property that I purchased was in 2006 and I bought that for $320,000. I sold it a couple of years later for about $370,000, $380,000. It was in the Beaches in Toronto on Kenilworth Avenue. It was a semi-detached house that was converted into 3 units. So in the top apartment, it was a 2-bedroom unit that I lived in. And then on the main floor was a bachelor apartment, and on the basement was another unit as well, which I rented out those 2 units. So I sold that property about 2 years after I purchased it for about $370,000, $380,000. So made a little bit of a profit on that. So a similar house just sold a few weeks ago on that same street. It's a semi-detached, so the same setup, same lot size. It was a house though, it wasn't a multi-unit property, and it had a little bit more renovations in terms of the updates. Now that just sold for $1.36 million a few weeks ago. So comparing the property that I bought back in 2006 and what a similar property just sold for now, excluding the updates and renovations, probably maybe $100,000 difference there. The value has gone up 4 times from 320 to 1.36. 400% increase over the last 15 years, which is a huge jump, obviously, in the appreciation of real estate. So I'm shooting this video in May 2021. I'm going to give you the average prices of different types of real estate in Toronto. Now, this is going to include Toronto West, Toronto Central, and Toronto East. If you do buy something in the Toronto Central area, the average price is going to be higher. When it averages out the whole of the Toronto city, it incorporates the East and West End, which the price is a little bit less expensive compared to the central location. So as you can see from this information, the average price for a condo last month was $727,000. A semi-detached home was just over $1.3 million. The cost for a detached house in Toronto is $1.7 million as of last month, and the cost for a detached home in central Toronto is $2,457,000. The other thing that's very expensive in Toronto and also Canada is our cell phone or mobile phone, and also our internet bills. If you want to get a decent cell phone package, if you're a heavy user, it's going to cost you around $100 a month. Same thing for the internet. If you want good download speeds, if you're a heavy online user, it's going to cost you about another $100 a month. Now you can get cheaper internet and cell phone prices for about $50 a month, but obviously they're not going to be as many minutes or as much capacity in terms of your downloads and usage. When you compare this to other countries around the world like the US or even in Europe, cell phone and internet bills are pretty expensive. If you want to watch another video where I break down the cost of living in Toronto, check out my other video. I go into a lot more detail in terms of the various costs of living in Toronto. So con number 4 of living in Toronto, or basically anywhere in Canada, are the high taxes. Now this is your income tax, property taxes, and even HST, which is the harmonized sales tax on any goods and services that you pay. So I'm going to give you a few examples of income tax. So if you're making this amount of money, this is what you would pay in income tax here in Ontario. The income tax rates are broken up into 2 sections basically. You have the federal tax, which covers the country, and then you have the provincial tax as well, and that varies from province to province wherever you live in. So here in Toronto, I'm going to give you some examples of some different income levels and what you can expect to pay for your income tax level. So buckle up, because this may shock you. So in this example, I'm going to show you how much income tax you would pay if you're living in Ontario and you're making an income of either $100,000, $150,000, $250,000, or $500,000. So if your income is $100,000, your total tax would be $23,454, which would leave you a net income of $76,546, which is basically a 23.45% average tax rate, with the two taxes it blended into that, the federal and the provincial. If your income is $150,000, your tax would be just over $45,000 and your net income would be nearly $105,000, and that's an average tax of just over 30%. If you have an income of $250,000, your tax would be $95,000 and your net income would be $154,000, nearly $155,000, with an average blended tax rate of 38%. And if your income is $500,000, you would pay tax of $228,000, nearly $229,000, and your net income would be $271,000, a tax rate of nearly 46%. Now, if you do incorporate, corporate income tax is much lower here. I think it's around 12.5%, but on a personal income tax level, this is an example of the income tax that you would pay on a salary or income here in Ontario. Now, the other tax you need to consider is the HST, which is the harmonized sales tax. Now, this is a blend where it's harmonized from the goods and services tax, the GST, plus the provincial sales tax, the PST. Now, this is different depending on which province you live in, but here in Ontario it's 13%. And something to know if you're not from Ontario, when you go to buy a product in a store, let's say it's $10, when you get to the cashier to check out, the price is not going to be $10. The tax is not included in the price on the sticker or on the label. They add the tax on after that. So with 13% HST, if you're buying something for $10, when you get to the cash, it's going to be $11.30, that extra 13% added on top. So just be aware of that. In some countries, you have the value added tax where it ranges from 12 to 15, even 17% in some countries. So just be aware of that, is that when you pay for the items, the prices that you see online or in the store, there is no tax price included, and they will be added on top when you check out online or whether you buy it in the store, 13% HST. So con number 5 of living in Toronto is the public and transit system in Toronto. Now, if you're in the downtown core, the subway system is okay if you live near the subway. However, it's not a complete built-up network. If you look at other large cities throughout the world or in Europe, compare it to Chicago, New York, London, Madrid, Barcelona, Rome, Athens, the subway systems there are way better. You can get around anywhere in the city. Here in Toronto, that's not the case. You'll have to get a subway to the closest stop and then probably catch a streetcar, walk, or an Uber to get to the location. As you can see here from the map, it's pretty a primitive system for the subway layout. You've got the Yonge line, the University line, which runs north and south. You've got the Bloor line, Danforth line, which runs east to west. Now, we do have the new Eglinton LRT extension, which has been delayed a few years because Toronto construction takes very, very long here for some reason. And that should be ready by 2022. And then we also have the Shepherd extension line, which runs east of Yonge Street, that goes east, and that's been up and running for a few years now. But the subway system is pretty limited. The other way that you're going to get around Toronto is going to be, or central Toronto is going to be the streetcar system, which is connected to a lot of the subway lines, which is helpful. And the other way is just to get around by cab or Uber driver. Now, if you live outside of the Toronto area, the best way is going to be by a GO train or a bus. If you take public transit, even if you drive, sometimes it's better to take the GO train if you live in Oakville or Mississauga to get downtown Toronto to commute if you work in the downtown location. It's going to be way quicker and way easier to take the train than it will be to drive just because of the traffic. So I may have missed some different cons, but these are my top 5 cons of living in Toronto. If you have any cons that you can think of, hit me up in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, you got any value from it, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notifications. And if you're seriously thinking about buying or selling in Toronto or the Greater Toronto area, whether that's a condo or a house, and you want to set up a free real estate consultation with me, check out the link in the description below. Pick your day, pick the best time that suits you, and I'll see you in that Zoom call. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.